Hey guys, my name is Michael, and welcome to another episode of the Accelerated Executive. In today's episode, I want to talk about a mentality that I developed that made me infinitely resourceful at work. So, one thing you'll recognize when you work in a large organization is that you're not always going to have the resources you think you need for a difficult task. And that's pretty normal because if a company always had resources readily available, they're probably not running lean enough. And large organizations are very effective and very efficient at running lean. So when you're in a situation where you don't have all the resources you think you need, you have two options. Option one, you can ask your leadership for the resources that very likely don't exist. Or option two, you can find a way to get things done irrespective of whatever shortages you have. And most people default to option one because it's the natural thing to do. Anyone can complain about what's not available or why something is too hard to do. The people who stand out in a large organization are the ones who consistently choose option two, and they find a way to get things done irrespective of whatever odds are in front of them. By choosing the harder path, they also end up benefiting because they upskill faster than their peers, they build credibility, and then they get promoted faster. And I'll give you an example of this. So for the majority of my career, I was responsible for designing, selling, and delivering large IT transformation programs, typically 10 to $50 million in size, sometimes larger. For deals of that size and magnitude, it often required a multitude of different people and multitude of different skill sets. I needed financial pricers, I need lawyers, HR leads, multiple different solution architects, different business service lines, and multiple business analysts. And in almost every deal that I worked on, I didn't have all of these available to me. So I had a decision to make. I could complain about what I needed, or why I couldn't get things done, or I could hunker down and fill as many of those gaps as I could. And I usually chose the second option. And what ended up happening is I branched out of my original job description and I learned how to be a solution architect. I learned how to price deals. I learned how to draft initial drafts of contracts and more. Now, I was never able to fully replace any of those roles, but by learning 60 to 70% of that task, what I did was I significantly reduced my dependency and I made it easier for people to work on my deals. After doing this a few times, I developed a saying to remind myself to always choose the harder path and choose option two. And I would tell myself that reinforcements aren't coming. Once I told myself that reinforcements aren't coming, I've accepted my circumstances, I've moved past the option to complain, and I've made the decision to win with what I have. And I first came up with this saying when I was watching a show called Band of Brothers. And for those who aren't familiar, it's a TV series that follows a group of young men in World War II called Easy Company. That's the name of the battalion. And in one episode, Easy Company is tasked with holding the line in Belgium against overwhelming German odds, German forces. They're undersupplied, they're understaffed. It's the dead of winter. They don't have any winter clothes. They don't have food, and they have every reason to complain and lose that battle. And despite the odds, they held the line. They suffered heavy casualties, and they did what they were asked to do. This example is obviously much higher stakes than a corporate job, but for me, the principles and the mentality applies to anything that is difficult in your life. When you're faced with a tough task, you have the ability to choose not to complain and to do everything that you can to find a way to win. The last thing I'll say about this mentality is a very ironic thing that happens once you embrace it. Once you accept, at least this is what I've found, once you accept that you're okay with scarcity, you start to become infinitely resourceful. Your mentality becomes contagious because people want to work with you because you've decided you're going to win with or without them. So the resources that you initially wanted show up once you decide you don't need them, which I find very ironic, and actually applies to other areas of life. But in summary, when things get tough, tell yourself that reinforcements aren't coming. Choose not to complain, and you'll end up unlocking your unlimited potential. So that's it for episode 2. Remember, be kind, work hard, be the change you want to see, and I'll catch you in the next episode.